Deku, aka Tsuku Midoriya, is one of the most misunderstood fictional characters when it comes to his scaling. This is most likely because Deku was often depicted as a crybaby at the beginning of the story, and therefore people have assumed that he is weak. But Deku has grown a lot since the start of the series, not only as a character but also in strength. So let's go over just how strong Deku truly is. At the start of the series, Deku is just an average teenager, maybe a little bit on the scrawny side, but after getting offered One For All by All Might, Deku undergoes training. During this training, we see Deku lift All Might, who weighs 255 kilos, as well as him being able to drag around a fridge while All Might is sitting on it. A fridge weighs roughly 220 kilos, so that plus All Might's weight would mean that Deku is dragging around 475 kilos. This is of course nothing really compared to real world people, like really strong people in the real world, who can like drag around cars and planes and stuff. Of course, those have wheels, but still, a car can weigh upwards of a ton, so Deku dragging around half a ton isn't really that impressive. After his training, Deku becomes way more fit, and is now able to inherit One For All. And this is where Deku's main source of power comes from. Even in just chapter 3, we see Deku destroy a zero-point robot with a single punch. The energy needed to compress Zero Pointer's face, like he did, would require around 1.5 times 10 to the power 19 joules of energy, which is enough to destroy a building. And since Deku can't use full cowl at this point in the story, he can only move at around 7 meters per second, as we see him run a 50-meter sprint in 7 seconds. Class 1A then go to the USJ facility, and here we see Deku launch a bunch of water into the air, is equal to around 102 tons of TNT. This would be enough to destroy multiple city blocks with just a flick of his finger. Later on, during the sports festival, we see Deku fight against Todoroki. During this fight, it's made clear that 100% Deku is relative to Todoroki, and Todoroki has two very impressive feats, one of them being him creating a giant ice structure, and the other one being him melting the giant ice structure. The creation of the ice structure is equal to around 3 megatons of TNT, which is enough to destroy a small city, and the melting of the ice structure would require him to output roughly 10 kilotons of TNT, which is enough to destroy a town. After the sports festival, Deku goes on an internship with Gran Torino, and during this Deku learns how to use full cowling. Full cowling allows Deku to use One For All through his entire body instead of just focusing in on one body part. With this, Deku can use 5% of One For All without damaging himself. This boosts Deku's strength, durability, and speed, meaning that he isn't a glass cannon anymore. Since Deku could output roughly 3 megatons of TNT with 100%, that means that 5% Deku would be able to output upwards of 150 kilotons of TNT, which is enough to destroy a large town. As well as this, Deku could match the speed of Ira's Recipro Extend, which would be relative to his Recipro Burst, which allowed him to move at speeds between Mach 9 and Mach 40 when saving Todoroki from Stain, with the halfway point between these two numbers being Mach 24.5. Something that I would like to mention also is that humans in My Hero Academia are just way more powerful than regular people. I mean, Stain, who doesn't have a quirk that boosts his strength, was able to tank a punch from 5% Deku. So a Season 2 Deku at 5% is around town level and high hypersonic, but he can also throw small city level punches. During Seasons 1 through 5, there isn't really a lot to talk about when it comes to scaling, so I'm just gonna skip that and move forward to Season 6 and the Meta Liberation War arc. During the war, we see Deku take on and match Shigaraki in power and speed. It never says that Shigaraki is on the same level as All Might, and this is very important because All Might's scaling is far beyond anything I've mentioned up until now. Even in just the first chapter, a fatigued All Might brings in a fucking storm with a single punch. The energy needed to do this would be enough to destroy Mount Everest. This line of scaling is also consistent with Deku and Shigaraki being able to create mountain and island level shockwaves during the war. The war also takes place after the second movie, in which Deku and Bakugo disperse part of a massive storm that Nine created. The energy needed to disperse this giant storm would be enough to destroy a large island. And keep in mind that Nine created this massive storm that dwarfs an island. Shigaraki could also beat Endeavor, who could do more damage to a high-end Nomu than the Intercontinental Cruise Missile explosion did, which is an explosion that contained roughly 3 teratons of TNT, or small country level. In terms of speed, Deku should also be much faster than the weighed down All Might he fought during the final exams. This All Might was able to block point-blank explosions from Bakugo, which has been calced at speeds ranging from Mach 549 at a low ball all the way up to Mach 2148 as a high ball, with the halfway point between these two numbers being Mach 1371, which is massively hypersonic plus. After the war, Deku leaves UA and grows way more powerful. During the war, Bakugo still had some form of relativity to Deku, but during the Villain Hunt arc, we see a heavily fatigued Deku low diff all of Class 1A, even though he wasn't even fighting back. In the same arc, we see Deku outspeed Lady Nagant's bullets from over 100 meters away. Nagant's bullets have more force behind them than a Howitzer, and for them to be that powerful, they would need to be moving at over Mach 50. For Deku to then outspeed her bullets from over 100 meters away, he would need to move at around 1% the speed of light. Deku then returns to UA after having fought Class 1A, and they get ready for the final war. But before that, we get to see the fight between Shigaraki and Stars and Stripes. During the time Deku was away from UA, Shigaraki has also grown substantially in power, and is now as fast and powerful as Prime All Might. Shigaraki is faster than Stars and Stripes, who was able to catch a laser, which also required her to move at bare minimum 1% the speed of light. And remember the feat I mentioned earlier of All Might blocking an explosion from Bakugo? Well, Prime All Might is around 60 times stronger and faster than Weak All Might. So if Weak All Might could move at a speed of Mach 1371, then Prime All Might could move at a speed of Mach 82,260, which is around 9.5% the speed of light. And All Might was holding back and weighted down when he blocked the explosion from Bakugo, so who knows how fast he actually is. And during the final war, Deku at 45% shows relativity to Shigaraki. Oh, and if the proof I showed earlier of Shigaraki being Prime All Might level wasn't enough, then just look at this. It's pretty clear that Shigaraki is on par, if not stronger than Prime All Might. And since current Shigaraki is on par with Prime All Might, and War Arc Shigaraki was to Weak All Might level, it would mean that current Shigaraki and 45% Deku are at least 60 times stronger than Endeavor, who matched the missile explosion. Which means that Deku, with 45% of One For All, would be able to output 259 teratons of TNT in one punch, which is large country level, and at 100% would be able to output 571 teratons of TNT with a single punch. Now, before I go into the final part of the scaling, I'll first have to go over Deku's different quirks. Deku's main quirk is One For All. This quirk was formed when All For One gave a quirk that could stockpile power to his little brother, who he thought was quirkless. But in reality, the little brother actually had a quirk. This quirk allowed him to pass down his quirk to others. When All For One gave his little brother a quirk, the stockpiling quirk merged with the original quirk and formed One For All. With every user of One For All, the quirk grows stronger and stronger. As well as this, if a user of One For All already had a quirk, then that quirk will be passed down to the next user. In total, this gives Deku 6 quirks apart from One For All. These quirks, in order from most recent to oldest, are Float, which allows Deku to float in midair. When combined with special gloves that allow him to shoot air bullets, Deku can practically fly. Smokescreen allows Deku to create a smokescreen. It's pretty simple. Black Whip. These are black tendrils that Deku can shoot out of his forearms and wrist, which he usually uses to swing around and grab people. Danger Sense allows Deku to sense incoming attacks and any malicious intentions in others. Fajin. This allows Deku to store and release kinetic energy, allowing Deku to increase his speed and power by at least 2.2 times, since he was able to combine the stored up energy with 45% of One For All to replicate 100% of One For All. And finally, Gear Shift. This allows Deku to increase or decrease the speed of anything he touches down on a cellular level. On its own, it's not something impressive, but when combined with One For All, it completely changes Deku's scaling and makes him an absolute unit. Gear Shift has 4 stages: Second Gear, Third Gear, Top Gear, and Overdrive. Second and Third Gear are just like speed boosts, But when Deku uses Top Gear and One for All at the same time, it allows him to break the laws governing reality just by moving. This is actually a real-world phenomenon, where when an object with mass moves at the speed of light, it breaks the laws of physics. This seems to be what Horikoshi is implying, so when Deku is using Top Gear, he can actually move at the speed of light. And with this reality-breaking power, he can warp 5 punches into one with the Detroit Smash Quintuple, being a punch that is 5 times stronger than normal. It allows Deku to throw a punch equal to 1.2 petatons of TNT, which is continental level. But Deku can then exceed this power and speed with Overdrive. Remember Fajin? Well, Overdrive is the combination of Gear Shift, One for All, and Fajin. Shigaraki says that the Detroit Smash coupled is light compared to the punches he took from Deku while using Overdrive. That means that Overdrive would be over 5 times stronger and faster than Deku when he's just using Top Gear. And seeing how Shigaraki got the ace treatment from Overdrive Deku, it's not outrageous to say that Overdrive Deku could possibly be 5 to 10 times faster than the speed of light and can throw punches that contain 1.2 all the way up to 2.4 petatons of TNT. But Deku is only using 45% of One for All while using Overdrive. So if he were to use 100%, then he could output upwards of 5 petatons of TNT, which is multi-continental. So in conclusion, Deku went from being around multi-city block level with athlete human speeds in Season 1 to large country level and with relativistic levels of speed without gear shift, and multi-continental with FTL to FTL plus levels of speed in the final arc.